Good to have you with us here on this Monday edition. Ed Schultz News and Commentary, stronger together. That's what it said at the podium with the sign as Hillary and Bernie were hugging. Now, this is the day that all progressives have been waiting for. Actually, this is the day that the mainstream media has been waiting for, and they've just been torn apart how Bernie hasn't done this sooner. Well, the platform fight is, or formulation of the platform is all but done. There's been enough adopted by the Clinton campaign for the platform to satisfy Bernie Sanders. Or, if you want to believe the Twitter fight that has erupted between the senator from Vermont and the presumptive nominee of the Republicans, Donald Trump, he's a total sellout. Not everybody's going to love this, but most people, I think, are. Today in New Hampshire, Bernie Sanders formally and finally endorsing Hillary Clinton.
I have come here to make it as clear as possible as to why I am endorsing Hillary Clinton and why she must become our next president.
This is the most important endorsement that Hillary Clinton could have, because no matter who else endorses Hillary Clinton, they don't have 13 million voters and they don't have 22 contests, victories under their belt. Clinton thanking Sanders for his endorsement and his lifelong fight for justice.
Over the years, I've gotten to know him as a colleague and a friend. His reputation for passionate advocacy hasn't always made him the most popular person in Washington. But you know what? That's generally a sign you're doing something right. And throughout this campaign, Senator Sanders has brought people off the sidelines and into the political process. He has energized and inspired a generation of young people who care deeply about our country and are building a movement that is bigger than one candidate or one campaign.
Well, I have to tell you, I don't think that Hillary Clinton has told the truth as good as that in a long time. Not to be a cynic, but everything she just said was 100% true. Am I going to back Hillary Clinton? Absolutely. There's no question about it. This is an earned process. She got more votes. She won more contests. And she is going to be the presumptive nominee. And I hope that she is the next president of the United States. I hope that there will be an embrace from the Clinton people to the people that she's going to need if she's going to beat Donald Trump. There's no question that this is a much more progressive platform because of Bernie Sanders. She has moved to the positive, as I've seen it. Her decision on Keystone, her decision on trade, which I hope holds, on tuition, free tuition at state universities, $15 an hour minimum wage that she's going to go for, and also the fact that we're going to, as a party, move forward for increased health care insurance across the board to make Obamacare better, headed towards Medicare for all. Now, there's going to be a portion of supporters out there that think that Bernie sold out. You can believe that Chuck Schumer, who's going to be the next Senate Majority Leader, I hope the Democrats do win the Senate, probably told Bernie Sanders, if you have any hope of being a chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, this is the move you have to make before the convention. And there were some heated discussions, no doubt, but it's all for the better. It's the Democratic Party, and it's a heck of a lot better than what the other side has to adopt. This is going to be a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, but it is something that needs to be done. Donald Trump cannot be president of the United States. That's how progressives in a big tent must view this. Maybe I'm missing something. That's why I'm bringing in Ruth Conniff. She is the editor of the Progressive Magazine and great friend. Ruth, good to have you with us today.
Great to be with you, Ed.
Your thoughts on what has unfolded just not too far away from the convention. Much anticipated. Bernie says he's going to the convention. I should point out that he's not closing down his campaign. Your take on all of this. Good to have you with us.
Yeah. Well, I watched them stand together on stage, and I was not surprised. I mean, I think it was very clear, despite the rumors to the contrary, that Sanders ultimately was going to endorse Clinton, and it was a question of when, not if. And after he wanted to wait through the D.C. primary, and then he was going to do that because he is an idealist, but he's also pragmatic, and that's why he ran inside the Democratic Party and not as an independent socialist third-party candidate, which was also an option for him. And he doesn't want Donald Trump to be president of the United States. So, I think that's sincere. I think the most sincere thing that he said in his endorsement of Hillary was when he talked about how smart she is, and it was kind of interesting she broke into smiles then because he means it. Everybody knows that. And then he stepped aside and wiped his brow because it was, I think, a hard lift for him. I think the two campaigns have developed a little bit of bitterness towards each other, and I think, it was, as you described it, a hard pill to swallow in some ways for members of the Sanders campaign, which was always a iconoclastic anti-establishment campaign and didn't intend to end with an endorsement of the establishment candidate. But, I think that Sanders feels that it doesn't make sense to make the perfect the enemy of the good. And I think a large portion of his supporters will agree with that, as you just did, and some will not, and they will vote for Jill Stein and the Green Party. It's going to divide the left a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be tremendously divisive. And I think that the pivot now is going to be thinking about what becomes of that campaign, how it becomes a lasting movement for economic justice issues and all the things that Bernie talked about.
Ruth, wouldn't Hillary Clinton almost guarantee victory in the White House if she were to ask Bernie Sanders to run with her?
God, I don't know, Ed. It's a weird political year. I mean, just this last week, seeing the incredible racial divide in the country, I think that it's a mistake to count out the forces that Donald Trump has helped to unleash, and that we're a really divided country in ways that are disappointing because it seems like we had come further than this. And, I think, having Elizabeth Warren out there on the campaign trail strongly, being Hillary's surrogate and arguing, is helping to capture some of those Sanders voters. And I think, that's the big question in the air is how many of them are going to go for Hillary. But I don't know that I don't know. I really don't know.
So
I don't know that it's a sure thing no matter what.
Do you get a sense that it's what we have seen happen in this country in the last week would possibly guarantee an African American on the ticket with Hillary Clinton as almost a must to show that there is a racial mending that she is willing to really focus in on?
I thought immediately she might pick Cory Booker. I think that... I
don't think he's qualified, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that that's possible. I think, there's been a lot of speculation about who she'll pick, and that'll continue for a while, and I think ultimately it's going to make less of a difference than it seems like for the week or so that conversation is really hot. But, I think that the Hillary campaign has clearly decided to go after Donald Trump, has sort of been figuring out how to do that in a way that's more successful than all of his Republican rivals have been, and appealing directly, particularly to Hispanic voters, and Black voters.
It's got to be an easier lift to endorse Hillary because of the competition in Donald Trump.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so Bernie handles that. What role does Bernie Sanders play? My take is that he goes where he won. He goes to states like Michigan and Minnesota and Colorado, Oregon and Washington and says, hey, you can't let this go red. You got to get behind Hillary, especially in Colorado. It would seem to me that Bernie Sanders would go where his strength is and convince his supporters to make the turn. What do you think?
I think that's right, and I think he will actually actively campaign, because that's been another question. Is this just going to be the most tepid of endorsements, something like what Scott Walker gave to Donald Trump?
Yeah.
It takes a speaking role, but he never actually says he endorses him.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. Bernie's going to go where he's useful. They're going to ask him to go to swing states. They're going to ask him to go to hard-hit industrial states where both Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders have a message about trade that resonates with voters. And I think that he's going to do that. He's going to hit the road for Hillary.
Yeah, and I think we got a flavor today of exactly what Bernie Sanders would say on the campaign trail. Here it is.
It's no secret that Hillary Clinton and I disagree on a number of issues. That is what this campaign has been about. That is what democracy is about. But I am happy to tell you that at the Democratic Platform Committee, which ended Sunday night in Orlando, there was a significant coming together between the two campaigns, and we produced by far the most progressive platform in the history of the Democratic Party.
So that kind of tells me, Ruth, that Bernie had to go away with something. And in that last statement, we've produced the most progressive platform in the history of the Democratic Party. He's got to have something. Is that it?
I think that was really significant. I mean, you know, of course, nobody goes back and reads the platform and makes policy on that basis, but it's a statement of what the party is supposed to represent. And Sanders and the people that he put on the committee made some real headway. They didn't win everything, but they won some significant stuff. For example, on education, the Democratic Party platform now calls for tuition-free education in public colleges and universities for people who make less than $125,000 a year. That's not free college for all, but it's a big advance. You know, it's expanding Social Security, not just protecting it. You know, these are significant moves. On trade, it was a little more disappointing. You know, they didn't get what they wanted. He put Cornel West on there to talk about Palestine. That went nowhere. But they did make some significant advances on these basic economic justice issues that Sanders represents. And
Sanders, of course, has no problem going after Donald Trump.
But her opponent, Donald Trump, well, he has a very different view. He believes that states should have the right to lower the minimum wage or even abolish the concept of the minimum wage. If Donald Trump is elected, we will see no increase in the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, a starvation wage. This election is about which candidate who will nominate Supreme Court justices who are prepared to overturn the disastrous Citizens United decision.
And then that's a big one, too, Citizens United, and I think Hillary has been a lot better on that than what most progressives thought she was going to be. The final point, the Republicans, Ruth Conniff, are now saying that they want Hillary Clinton investigated for perjury. Like a pit bull that's got a bite that won't let go. Is that pretty much what this email scandal is going to be for the Republicans throughout this entire campaign? And it seems like it's the strongest point that Donald Trump has been making with his limited supporters. Your thoughts on all that?
Well, I think that the Republicans have made a real mistake in the way that they've handled what the FBI finally came out and said. Instead of embracing James Comey's statement that what Hillary did was wrong, they've attacked him. And he's kind of an unimpeachable figure. So they are continuing to push for more charges. It's not going to happen, you know. So I think that they should be running on what they got, and instead they're pushing for something that's not going to happen. And it kind of looks like all the efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act. It becomes an utterly partisan, siloed issue, and people who are inclined to believe it, and people who are on the other side discount it.
Yeah. Ruth, always good to visit. Obviously, we want to talk to you a lot during the conventions, and get ready for election night. So you got a lot of work to do with us. We're looking forward
to being with you.
Thank you so much. Ruth Conniff, who is the progressive editor of the Progressive Magazine in Wisconsin, a long-time great political advocacy worker and journalist, no question about it. Ed Schultz, news and commentary. We've got more right after this.
Hey folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com. www.biogreenclean and order today.
It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns.
It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor.
They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
Good to have you back with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. I just got back from Moscow, Russia, spent 3 days there on a business trip, and I was taken by just how interested the Russians, the average folk on the street, how interested they are in our election cycle and how intrigued they are by Donald Trump, but also how they fear him, because he is just an unguided missile, for lack of a better term. Missiles seem to be the big question right now with the Russians and the placement of missiles on the border of Romania, which Putin doesn't like, and Obama said he wasn't going to do, but he did. And of course, the issue is what's going to happen with the Iranians. But all of that put aside, the Russian people I've found to be very much like Americans. They want the good life. You know, they want a good job. They want a good economy. They want health care. They want education. They want a chance at a retirement. They want stability in their economy. And what I noticed in Moscow, with all of the sanctions that are being placed on Russia, the economy's booming there. There's a lot of construction in Moscow. All the restaurants are full. The city of Moscow has 4.5% unemployment, and things seem to be moving really well. And with the sanctions that have taken place, the agricultural industry has taken off in the country. The beef industry is thriving, the cheese industry. They are big time anti-GMO. They want it all natural, and they want their restaurants to be natural. And so I found a lot of good things in Russia, and I found a hearty group of people that want to see success between the United States and their country. And I'll have more commentary on this in the coming days, but those were my first impressions. The only car I got in when I was over there was a Ford. I passed Kentucky Fried Chicken quite often, and old McDonald's is doing just great business on the main streets of Moscow. It's interesting, and it's an interesting city that goes back to 1175, the 12th century. And it was amazing to me just how many religious cathedrals there are in Moscow and how connected the people are. And it's a pretty conservative society. My first impressions and a lot more detail in future podcasts. I'm Ed Schultz. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bringing this production. We're back tomorrow.